Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows. This is our morning broadcast, August the 12th, 2024, and things are getting quite interesting around the world when it comes to global conflict. There's rioting in England. There is the presidential race going on here in America. We are going to be here to discuss it all from a theological perspective of rightly dividing the word of truth. I think there's a lot of different sources you could go to get a Christian perspective, but not all of those perspectives are, I would say, oriented towards right, good, sound doctrine. So that's what we want to provide for you. We're going to talk about the state of the race. The people are fickle. We're also going to revisit a question that I got last week on Theology Thursday. And I hope that we have all of our settings back to the way they should be. We struggled a little bit Thursday and Friday on our broadcast. I'm recording all of this, so if you, for some reason, are a live audience today, the signal drops, I'll get this uploaded for you so you can watch later. How about that? Now, before we get into any of our topics, I do have some exciting news that I want to share with you. So let me go over to our website, markbazeministries.org. When you go over there, you will notice that we have our sermon notes right here, and you will see Misapplied right here. If you click on Misapplied, our entire Misapplied series is now complete. So all 10 sessions in which we looked at Old Testament Bible stories that are often used for deriving doctrine, and we questioned that. We asked the question whether or not those stories that you're so familiar with are misapplied. So we started out opening up with the Joshua chapter 1 passage. I will never leave you or forsake you. Meditate on my word day and night, and you will have success wherever you go. We went to the story of Korah's rebellion, often used to defend the unquestionable authority of the pastor or clergy, and we looked at that. We looked at all sorts of interesting stories. A still small voice, often misapplied, used to teach theology regarding listening for the voice of the Lord. The book of life, the faith of Abraham, on and on it goes. I think that you will find if you take the time to watch this series, we really do a, hopefully, thorough job of addressing a lot of the confused doctrine that so many people believe nowadays. And so that is our most recent series. I will remind you, though, that we're also working on a series right now that will get uploaded to the website called The Last Days, in which we're covering the different doctrinal views, and we're going to ultimately, hopefully, give you a good overall understanding of the last days and our perspective on it, a pre-tribulational, premillennial view, and defending that. Now, this Sunday morning, we actually took a break from it. I did a few different things just to kind of freshen things up, keep the people on their toes. But we'll get back to things next week. So if you have not been able to check out the Misapplied series, please do that. Please take the time to take a look at it and let me know what you think. And maybe in the future I could revisit it. Maybe there's a few more that we could add on. Certainly I would like to one day do a New Testament version of the Misapplied series, because there's a lot of misapplied stories in the New Testament as well. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about the state of the race. A brief update, if you will. Kamala Harris is still pulling strong, right? She's had a pretty nice several, weeks now, almost a month. She announced that she's going to be running for president. She basically had all the party consolidate behind her. The media got behind her. She's been having concerts that she's been attending and also getting to speak at a little bit. So everybody's excited to come see the rap stars, the pop stars, and then she speaks for just a little bit. Nobody asks her any questions, and she goes on her merry way. And let's see, Donald Trump, he's been doing long-form speeches, speaking for several hours, often at a time, answering a lot of hard questions, going into hostile territory. And so because of that, the media is not giving him any favors and making him look as bad as they possibly can and making Kamala look as good as they possibly can. So Kamala, she's continuing to increase in her polling. Looks like that she's got some leads in some of the swing states. And this just goes to show you that the people are fickle. That's the title of today's show, and it's amazing how quickly people's minds can change. You had Trump doing quite well with Joe Biden being a non-alive person for all intensive purposes. And it looked like he was going to run away with this thing. People were tired of an open border. They were tired of all the conflict going on overseas. They wanted a strong leader to get stuff done. They were tired of high gas prices. And now all of a sudden they've changed their minds. Kamala's great and she's going to fight for women's rights so you can kill as many babies as you want. Or she's going to... That's about it. I don't know what else. She's a woman and she has... some pigmentation to her skin, so that makes her very popular. And so they're all aligning with her. The masses can change on a dime. It is amazing because I'm talking to a lot of you who watch this show, and you have some pretty foundational convictions about the world. That is true in both theology as well as politics. And some of your political views are grounded in your theology as well. We need to look around and accept reality for what it is. That is not the rule by which a lot of people live by. It's hard for us to fathom that there are people that live their lives without any serious convictions, that kind of change their views at a whim. But if you do not have a grounded view of the world, a worldview shaped most often by your theological view, you are very easily moldable, adaptable. Your opinion can shift on a dime. If you were concerned initially about maybe an open border and all the fentanyl going across and young women being murdered by illegal immigrants, all of a sudden you can have a fresh face and now everything's all happy, enjoying. We don't need that old man running the show, and we can be happy. And everybody's rights. Mind your own business, in the famous words of this VP candidate, Tim Walz. That's his golden rule that he lives by. So the people's minds are so easily adjusted, recalibrated. And what this means is ideology and principles can be altered for a lot of people. If they are not cemented in their views, it's almost breakneck speed, how easily they can shift in their position, assuming the polls are correct. That's what we're assuming here. All right, we're assuming that the polls are accurate, that Trump has dropped out of the lead in the national polling. He's dropped out of the lead in Michigan. He's fighting neck and neck in Pennsylvania. We're assuming all that's true, okay? Maybe since 2016, the polls are a little bit more reliable. They seem to held somewhat true in some recent polling. Who knows? Take it with a grain of salt. But assuming the polls are true, the political landscape is volatile, to say the least. It can quickly shift. Just weeks ago, that's how crazy this has been, but just weeks ago, Donald Trump was shot. And he was standing on stage, blood on his face, fist in the air, fight, 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 American flag in the background. Every single leftist at that moment felt like hope was lost, and it seemed like Trump was unbeatable. And now look where we are today. Now, maybe what we're being told isn't exactly accurate. Maybe Trump does still have the momentum, but for whatever reason, the leftists supporting Kamala Harris are screaming the loudest. We're going to find out. It'll all come out in the wash in November, assuming that our elections are fair, if they are. Does anybody believe that our elections are still fair? It certainly seems like the media is doing the best they can to rig it. Moving on, though, perhaps, just perhaps, politics is unique in that aspect, that politics, because it's so people-focused, personality-focused, character-focused, that it can pivot, it can shift on a dime. However, let's open up the scope beyond politics, considering the fickleness of people, how easily they can shift their position, move, how flexible they can be. Even if the needle can be budged a little bit in regard to theology, is it possible that we as contextual Bible students, right dividers, could we actually make some progress in our lifetime? We often talk a very negative view. I'm going to say something, and I don't want to offend you, but I think we got to be honest here. Those that are in our position, right? Rightly dividing the word of truth, understanding the Pauline mystery, I would say, and you can feel free to disagree with me. We've got a number of people on today watching the show. You can easily hop on here and tell me what you think, and I would encourage you to do so. We almost have the John McCain Republican mentality in some ways, or Mitt Romney mentality, which is lose with dignity. Just look around and say, well, it's all is lost, we can't win, and so our role is just to be the dignified losers, all right? And that does seem to be the case. I talk to a lot of people who do understand our theology, but they don't seem to have any optimism that we can do any good. It's like there's always going to be just a few random pockets of people. Now, on one hand, they're justified in that because that is exactly what we're seeing in today's time. They're doing an honest assessment. They look around the room and they see that in America, let's not expand it beyond America's bounds for right now. In America, there's a church over here. You drive for about 11 hours, there's a church over here. You drive for about 8 more hours, there's a church over here. That's just what they're honestly assessing. So on one hand, they're just facing reality. They're being honest about the situation. But they do kind of have the hopeless mentality, like we never are going to be able to really sink our teeth in and make some ground on changing the landscape of Bible believers in America, or even broader. Maybe they're right about that. Maybe they have wisdom to them that, and I'm sure they do in a lot of ways. But maybe there's the wisdom of their time and experience that says it can't be done. People's minds aren't going to change like that. You can't shift the paradigm. You can't do it. You cannot get people to realize that they have been fundamentally misunderstanding the Bible. That may be true, and looking at trends, if you were to place a bet, you probably should align with them because that's going to win you the most money. With that being said, though, if we do consider how quickly politics can shift, people's minds can be changed, assuming all that's true, and I think that is true. Let's leave this election out of it. Let's not even consider the shift in polls from Trump to Harris, because we don't know really what that means. Is it all accurate? How does it all play out? Go back to 2016. When Trump first announced that he was running for president, nobody was really even giving him a shot, right? It was kind of a joke that he was going to even run, that as many people saw it. Everybody was talking about Jeb Bush or Ted Cruz, somebody like that. We did not expect, or Marco Rubio, Ben Carson. We did not anticipate Trump being able to win. That was unpredictable. The people were not really considering Trump. All of a sudden, Trump gets on the scene. They rally behind him. So politics has shown that momentum can shift quickly. If there is any truth of that when it comes to theology, maybe, just maybe, our mentality that it's hopeless, we're never going to be able to make momentum, maybe that's not actually the most accurate view. Perhaps if we take advantage and we make hay while the sun is shining, when the strength of evangelicalism is down, that maybe we can get the word out, we can gain some traction and get more people to start considering this view of rightly dividing the word of truth. I mean, I know I've seen it in my own life prior to 2019. I didn't have really a concept of it. I knew that I had issues with Calvinism and also wasn't very content with the standard teachings I was getting out of evangelicalism. And then I stumbled upon Randy White's ministry and started learning more about it, doing some of my own studying and research, even talking to my parents, helping learn from them, because they raised me up with a dispensational background. It may not have been a word that they used, but the principles that they gave me were dispensational. And so going back, talking to them, that really helped me get on the right track here and start figuring these things out. And now I've been able to share this with the church I was at before. Many of them still understand those basic principles. I'm not saying they're all right dividers, but they still get the basic principle that Jesus' earthly ministry was to Israel, which is a far and above what most churches even get to. Then my church here at Blue, they're coming right along with me. Because of my gained experience I had at my first church at Liberty, I was able to make even progress much faster there. Also, I have some right dividers there at Blue. And then my family, I've been able to start, they've been listening to me, following my ministry. They've started to understand some things, and they've been sharing with some more of our extended family, and we're making some ground. Maybe these things do start extremely slow, crawling along. And some of the seeds of this were planted all the way back in, well, going way back to men that have gone before us who are no longer with us. But maybe if we can find the right time, maybe the biggest problem with some of those right dividers who were way smarter than me, they were just in a much more difficult situation. They were in the times in which the Southern Baptist Church was at its full strength and the evangelical message was going out strongly. But now I benefit from the perspective of the Southern Baptists are pretty weak right now. There's not a strong leader. They're so fractured, they're so divided that maybe, just maybe, we can take advantage of the opportunity. I hope so. I hope that that's maybe what we're seeing in this presidential election is telling us. Now, I think it also tells us, though, that because people are fickle, our effort can easily be undone in short order. So just because we may be seeing progress right now amongst our family or our churches and in regard to defending a dispensational right division view of the Bible, contextual Bible study, don't think that the work is done. The truth is, if I can over the course of a year get my church to the point of understanding the principles of rightly dividing the word of truth, I could easily see that undone in short order. That's just the reality we have to face, because once again, people are susceptible to having their mind changed. And that's not a fault to them, talking just about people in general, whether it's your family, your church, you name it. Not everybody sits around all day and dwells on the depths of theology, because they have families, they have children to feed, they have jobs they've got to go work, they have projects around the house they've got to get done. There's always a leaky sink, there's a faucet, there's always a cow that needs to be separated and fed, right? Because she's looking poor. There's a few that I got to get taken care of today, hopefully. But all that in mind, the truth of the matter is people have lives and they've got concerns. They go to the grocery store and they're realizing that it's costing them $300 to feed their family for 2 weeks. That's insane. It's insane. So there's so many other things going on. They may not be necessarily grounded in these fundamental biblical principles. That's why you've got to really do the work to hopefully cement them in that. But people's minds can be changed. We always got to be on guard. This sermon I preached on Sunday was on the armor of God. You have to always be ready to stand in the evil day. You never know when the attack may come. Satan has laid a lot of traps already. I think that he has laid so many traps, especially in 1st century AD. He's probably able to just sit back in his recliner and watch the show at this point, because he already did a lot of work to deceive people that Paul did not have a mystery revelation. The vast majority of Christianity doesn't believe that Paul preached any kind of different message than that of Peter or that of Jesus. And so Satan's work is kind of already done at this point. He's already succeeded in causing so many people to be confused, to to be in confusion regarding the gospel that we have today. Probably along the way there was confusion surrounding scriptures and manuscripts, and to what degree was Satan involved there. I think that he has every reason to be invested in confusion regarding the Word of God, and hopefully we can stand against those efforts by defending a position that we can know what the Bible says, and we've got to have a serious discussion about which manuscripts that we are going to defend, because not all of them say the same thing. Even if they are 95% the same, that 5% can really matter. And I think that we've seen when it comes to Bible translations, the 5% honestly can make all the difference. It's not even the big ones that they don't, it's not the big ones that they're honest about and tell you that really matter. It's the small ones that they don't mention. Those are the ones you've got to look out for, as we've seen time and time again. So it's very disheartening to see how in early July it looked like we were maybe going to have another conservative term, which hopefully Trump was going to correct some of the errors that he had in his first administration, like not getting the wall built, like allowing the bump stock ban to take place. There's a number of things that I could complain about, but there were going to be strengths. We were going to be respected more on the world stage. China was going to have to deal with a president that was not just going to bend the knee to them. Trump was going to institute tariffs on them, which was going to make them play much more nice, probably deter them from being so aggressive towards Taiwan. It looked like we were cruising to another opportunity. Trump, second term, hopefully have a better chance of doing some good. Maybe that still happens, but people's minds can change. And I will tell you right now, if in 2 weeks something major happens and Trump takes the lead, don't get comfortable, because people's minds can change. I think one of the great examples of Israel, or one of the great examples of this, is Israel in the Old Testament. Time and time again, their minds would shift and change continually. And then we look back on them and we say, oh, how silly, the nation of Israel. In one moment they're worshiping God, the next they're bowing down to Baal. And truth be told, people haven't changed. We're just as fickle now as they were then. And all it is just showing us the state of humanity and the problems that we've dealt with all this time. And that is my thoughts on that. Now, Trump is going to be sitting down with an interview with Elon Musk this evening, I believe. That's going to be an hour long or so. I hope that it's productive. I hope that Trump settles some things that are kind of up in the air, because obviously Kamala Harris has been laying all sorts of accusations, attacking women and whatnot. It is frustrating to me, because as a pro-lifer, I would absolutely love to see abortion made illegal across the country. It is an absolute evil, and they love to use the most extreme of cases to justify the use of abortion. They will go to the examples that are a fraction of a percentage, a single percentage. And in reality, it's very dishonest, because they want abortion to not be restricted at all. They want you to be able to kill a baby for any reason whatsoever, and therefore there is no serious discussion able to be had on the realistic matters concerning medical difficulties that could take place. And so hopefully Trump can put some of that to bed regarding, it's just a truth. Right now you've got to win. And Kamala Harris does seem to have a lot of traction in regard to the matter of abortion, the right to murder your children. And I think that's because a lot of women who are voting for Kamala Harris want to have the option if they have not already done so before. That's just what we got to realize. So that's an issue that Trump is maybe going to need to solidify some more. Project 2025, those are all matters that maybe are going to come up in the interview. We'll see exactly what goes on. It's just tough. Trump's been given the worst hand this month, because the media has just been nonstop attacking him. He's been trying to do all the difficult interviews, while Kamala Harris has been just coasting along the way in cruise control. So we'll see what that interview comes of it. I'll try to watch it tonight, and I will try to give you my thoughts tomorrow on how all that goes, because it does matter. We live in a society in which, unfortunately, we're not being governed by the original intentions of the Constitution. The Constitution originally did not have it designed where the president was such a big deal. And yet, because our congressmen have continued to pass the buck to the president and allow the president to have more responsibility, it makes a whole lot more of a difference than what it really ever should. Now presidents hand down executive orders left and right, and that's true really from both sides of the aisle. Presidents are responsible for so much spending. It's gotten too big. It's gotten too big. The government's way too big. It's way too bloated. We got to shrink it down. Simple as that. The smaller that you can make something, the better it can be managed. All of the social welfare programs, those need to be, some could argue, maybe abolished in some ways, but you could shrink it down to where it's a much more local level, much more easier to maintain, to where the system cannot be so abused, manipulated, twisted, and cost the taxpayers so much money. So the smaller we can get this thing, the better. Are we going to be able to find people willing to do that? Are we going to find politicians willing to give up power? That is a hard thing to do. Everybody, wants to compare themselves to George Washington. Every president wants to fashion themselves as the second coming of him, and yet Washington was the one that gave up power, as opposed to so many presidents that have come in modern times that have only taken more power for themselves. It's an amazing world that we live in today. All right, now, as we go forward here, let's talk about this question that I got from somebody last week regarding God ordaining all of history. So the question was, does God have an ordained plan for all of history? How do you interpret Acts 17:26? I talked about it. I just wasn't very happy with it. I felt like I wasn't very concise. So I'm not going to elaborate too terribly long on it, but I do want to try to get to my point here for you. I'm going to answer it very straightforward, and then I will elaborate just a little bit as I get to the passage here. Does God have an ordained plan for all history? The short answer is yes. God has ordained a certain course for the world. He has, in times past, ordained, for example, the Abrahamic covenant, that God was going to make a great nation from the man of Abraham, and he was going to bless him, and he was going to be a blessing to all people. When the time came, the nation of Israel that descended from Abraham, God established a covenant with them based upon the Mosaic law. And he made that covenant with them because of the promise he made to Abraham. If Israel was obedient to keep that commandment, or keep those covenants, which included commandments and statutes, then God would bless them. They would receive the land that was promised to the descendants of Abraham. That was the means by which the Abrahamic covenant would be realized. Then God promised that one day he would send the Messiah to reign as king, set up the throne forever, and Israel would no more serve other people, nor would they worship false gods. God would write his law in their hearts. When that Messiah came, they rejected him, and God had foresaw this. He knew they would reject him, and God actually ordained, instead of bringing wrath and destruction then and there, ordained a mystery age. This was not revealed previously, but it was known by God. So God absolutely ordained the mystery age that we live in today, in which we are not being dealt with in regard to ethnicity, descendants of Israel, or needing to align ourselves with Israel and keep the Old Testament law. The age that God has ordained in this time is won by grace through faith, not of works. It's the body of Christ age. Some may call it the church age, but the issue is there were churches previously under even the law, the covenants. But it's the body of Christ. Now God has ordained that this age is going to come to a close. The fullness of the Gentiles comes in. When that comes to a close, God is going to resume what he was doing with Israel, at which point his ordained span of 7 years of tribulation will commence. And at the end of those 7 years, God has ordained a 1,000-year physical reign of the Messiah on earth. So, absolutely, God has ordained a plan for all of history. Acts chapter 17, verses 24 through 27 speak to this, talking about talking about God, I can even read verse 24. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things. He hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bound for their habitation. So he has made of one blood all nations of men. That is, we all came from Adam. The one blood of Adam, all nations of men have come. They dwell on the face of the earth. That was God's will for man. And hath determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. The there here, let me pull up some evangelical software so I can do an analysis of the there and see what the scope of that is. But Acts 17:25, or verse 26, all nations there, neuter there is masculine. So nations of men, it could be referring to this, the times, but times is also masculine. So as I'm analyzing this is on our Logos software here. One of these days, Biblify is going to have all these same features, but Logos has a ton of programmers and coders, where Biblify is made by one brilliant one, which is Nathan White. But we have to decide the bounds of their habitation. Is this man or is this the times? Because times is plural as well. Men is obviously plural. It is plural masculine. Times is also pure plural masculine. And the case here is accusative. For men here, it is genitive, accusative, accusative. Or no, this one's genitive. Sorry, I was looking at bounds. So there could be referring to the men there, the bounds of their habitation. And the habitation there, how do we interpret habitation? Is it talking in the physical sense that men can only live in certain places, like men can't live underwater, or men can't live on the moon, or men can't live in Antarctica? You maybe could argue that. However, if we consider just the dwelling place, the habitation, the bounds of it, the bounds of which they live in. When men were in the age of the law, the bounds of their habitation were in accordance to the law. That was the limits. That was the order by which they lived by. You had no other way to be in right standing with God. Prior to the law, there was no law. It was more the age of conscience, so it had different bounds. It had different limitations. It had different zones in which men lived in. So there was a time before the law. There was the time of the law. There's this time in the age of grace. There's a time in which it's going to be resumed. And there are lengths regarding the span of that, how long those times last. The tribulation will last 7 years. The physical kingdom on earth will last 1,000 years. The law age lasted some, I don't know, I'm just shooting off the top of my head here, some 1,400 years, 1,500 years. The age prior to that was some several thousand years in which the law was not in place. So there's a bounds to their habitation. There's a limit. There's the times appointed in which God is going to deal with men. So I interpret this much more in a general sense, that it is the times appointed for all men, the bounds of their habitation, the course of history, and the desire that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after Him and find Him, though He be not far from every one of us. So I just read it in a much more general sense. I am not a fatalist. I'm not a determinist. that every single detail of this life is directly appointed by God. I would say everything that takes place has been allowed by God. So I became the pastor at Blue Baptist Church, not because God necessarily said prior to the foundation of the world, I am declaring that Mark will be the pastor of Blue Baptist Church. That is a part of my divine plan to the most intricate of details. Yet, God has orchestrated the world in such a way I have been allowed to choose to be the pastor of Blue Baptist Church, and God allowed the people of Blue Baptist Church to choose me to be their pastor. So in a sense, did God ordain this? Yes, because He's allowed us in this age to operate in that way. We can decide these things. Did God appoint me to be the pastor of Blue Baptist Church? I find the word appoint to be much more specific in regard to how God is dealing with man. The law age, the age of grace, the tribulation, the kingdom, all those things. Those things that are appointed are very specific, and it's declared by God, decreed by God to the very fine detail. In a general sense, I don't think God has appointed that you are going to have a sausage and cheese omelet for breakfast. I had a sausage and cheese omelet for breakfast. It was excellent. God has allowed it in this ordained age. Man eats, man needs to eat. We can choose what we want to eat. So in a sense, this age is ordained. So what is allowed to happen, God has ordained and allowed. I think I can use the word ordained in that sense. The word appoint, though, I think I'm going to use it much more specifically. And appointing is, did God appoint that Mark this morning at 8:15 would have a sausage and cheese omelet? No. That is not specific and necessary to God's divine perfect plan. I think what is specific and necessary to God's divine perfect plan is He appointed Christ to die, be buried, and resurrected. And He appointed Paul to receive the mystery from Christ, to proclaim the gospel of salvation by grace through faith. And God has ordained it to where men have the ability, the agency to hear the gospel and receive it or not receive it. Men can be persuaded, they may not be persuaded. So you're going to have to decide, are you going to consider this possibility? Will you allow yourself to be persuaded? Are you going to consider the matter? And that's how I would interpret that. There are passages, and I spoke to that last week, very specific ones regarding the hairs on your head are numbered, you're worth more than many sparrows. The issue is I find those to be all concerning Israel, and I do not see God being so specific to the nations in the age of grace. There were some very specific things regarding Israel, and there will be some very specific things regarding Israel, but just not in the same framework of the program that you and I have today. So I hope that I can clarify that position on ordaining versus appointing. I would see ordaining as God has allowed the course of events to unfold, man's free will resulting in these different outcomes, yet God has appointed particular things that will absolutely be brought about. Okay, now, with it being Monday and we're hitting the 40-minute mark here, that brings us to a close for everything I wanted to address with you today. I'm not going to draw it out if I don't have to, but I do want to say hi to you. So now, let's go into the Shields and Arrows time in which we visit with our live audience. Not live studio audience, but our live digital audience. So I want to talk to you. I want to say hi to you. I want to get your thoughts. Anything I said on today's show, this is the exclusive block of the show when I just chat with all of you, okay? So if you don't like the chat session, then thank you for joining us at Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. We discuss all important matters of doctrine, theology, culture, politics, you name it. So if you're done watching the show, then you can close out. But I have some members that I like to talk to, so I'm going to say hi to them and just let them know how much I appreciate them. We have Ken on this morning. Howdy, folks, he says, ready for some award-winning broadcasting for the drive to Little Rock. Well, I hope that your drive's been going well. I don't know if you've been running through any bad weather or not, but hopefully things are going well. Myra is on today. Myra, I do believe, right? You're enjoying a brand new grandchild. That is so exciting. So happy for y'all. Pray that all that's going well. We have Nancy on. Good morning. Great to have you on. Always appreciate you, Nancy. Her and I go way, way back. We have Wendell on. Wendell Russell, good morning. Great to have you. Appreciate you joining us today. We have Chuck on. Chuck says, Mark, you do a superb job with handling the scripture. Thanks for doing it. Probably have to watch this later today, but wanted to pop in as long as I can. Concerts, yuck, I guess that's what they are. Yeah, Kamala Harris, she's been packing out the stadiums. It's actually just been more of pop singers having a concert, and then Kamala Harris comes out and talks for just a second. But thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it. Chuck actually came and visited us last Sunday. I would be more than happy to have any of you come out and visit us for church. Always enjoy and appreciate each and every one of you. Ken makes an interesting point. Because people are fickle, they will easily be manipulated by the Antichrist. It is so easy. All you gotta do is take the vax, and then you can go to the grocery store. Good morning, Mom. She's on with us. Joined us yesterday for church. Always appreciate her. Nancy, everything she proposes to do, she could do now, but she won't. I saw that just the other day. She said something about when she's in office, she's going to lower grocery prices. You are the vice president, Kamala. You could lower the grocery prices now. That's so funny. The truth is she's a very bad politician. She's a very, very bad politician. She's quite awful, quite frankly. But it is, if you had the power to do so. What's amazing is she is the vice president, and she has been going now 20-something days without having to answer a single hard question. And if they have their way, she won't answer a single question between now and then. Nancy says, I don't trust the polls. I question that assumption that she's in the lead. I did mention that, take it with a grain of salt. Are the polls accurate? Are they what they really are? We'll find out, I guess, if the election's fair. Maybe. Yeah, Ken was talking about, I made a comment back to McCain and Romney, right? Losing with dignity. We're going to lose with dignity. That's my Mitt Romney impersonation. And yeah, they don't like Trump because he won. We're supposed to lose, remember? We're supposed to lose and complain about what the Democrats are doing. We're not supposed to actually have power. It's not what we're trying to do. You think we're trying to actually shift the culture here, try to get some stuff done? And Chuck, great words of wisdom. The smaller the population it is, the easier we can be managed. That's absolutely right. The smaller the population is, the easier we are to manage. I think what I get you saying is it's easier for us to manage it, to work in society, if you can control all that. Oh, no, or maybe you're talking about abortion. So maybe it does work both ways. On a small government scale, the smaller the number of people that govern themselves, the less that you have big government over you. But at the same time, if you have smaller population, then you can maybe control some of the people. It's an interesting discussion there. I think I know what you're talking about now. Kristen's on. Kristen, aren't you supposed to be working? Shame, shame, shame on you, Kristen. Kristen has a new job now, and so she works, so she can't watch the show. She said, will you please change the time? I'm sorry, I can't. It works too good for me right now. Chuck, I saw your comment. I'm going to leave it there. Myra asks an important question. Myra says, will you be back in blue teaching the Wednesday after Labor Day? Yes, I will be. Myra, are you wanting to come by? Yeah, I'll absolutely be doing Wednesday. As a matter of fact, we're starting back our Philippians study this week. This week, we're going to be starting back on the book of Philippians, verse by verse, rightly divided. Myra, if that's what you're hinting at, that you're going to be wanting to come by blue on Wednesday to visit us, just come on by. We would love to have you. That would be great. I will be, absolutely. And I will be in Branson, too. So I'll make an appearance there. We may even be filming a new episode of Defending the Faith. So if you see me walking around talking to a camera, that's what's going on. You can make a cameo, if you will. I may even be doing a special on-the-location Shields and Arrows episode, interviewing somebody. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So all sorts of exciting things I'm working on. We're also working on some things for the Spring Bible Conference. I'll let you know about that. We're working on it. We have some plans in the works. I was talking to a certain New Mexican pastor the other day about those matters. Your sister lives in Kingston. Your sister lives in Kingston? That's just right down the road from me. I didn't know that, Myra. That's just right there. Just come on down. Come see us. Come convince your sister to come over and come to my church. That's great. That's excellent. Nancy says, excellent. We'll see you in Branson. Good. Nancy, I'm excited to see you there. It'll be a great time. Dr. White always does an excellent job putting on Bible conferences. I'll advertise it right now. I am looking for a fall Bible conference location. It's not a special like one that we're going to be doing at Blue. It's just going to be, if you would be interested. I am somewhat limited on how far I can travel. Okay, I do have a bunch of kids. I can't quite go cross country yet. But I know that we have some Texas people. If you would be interested, maybe me coming down for a fall conference somewhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'll do it at a house. I don't care. But let me know. If there's some churches nearby that would be interested. I know sometimes we got some people kind of in my area of southeastern Oklahoma that would be interested in hosting me. I would be interested in doing another fall Bible conference for y'all. So keep that on your radar, and I would greatly appreciate the opportunity. That is something I would like to do because as we're talking about this matter of trying to get right division known, contextual Bible study known, you kind of have to go to the people to a degree. You've got to go places, you need to meet people, you need to see people, and that's what I'm going to try to be doing. And I need to try to reach out and find some people, find some churches. The issue is a lot of the pastors I know now are retired, or they're churches that I went to in the spring. So I would be more than happy to try to get the word out and go somewhere. If you would be interested in maybe driving, meeting me halfway. If you're close to anywhere in that southeastern, northeastern Texas region, I'd be more than happy to do that. I will mention, if we go over to Worshify, our good friend Scott has not been able to talk to us, so he's not ignoring us, okay? He just ain't able to use the YouTube live chat. I don't know if he got in trouble the other day, if he said something that was a little bit too true, but he hasn't been able to chat with us on the YouTube live chat. All right, looking at any more comments before I cut you off today. Maybe let you out a little bit early, but it's better to leave them wanting more, right? I always should leave you wanting more. You should just be waiting on pins and needles for the Tuesday edition of Shields and Arrows. It's good to be back. I'm glad to see that our internet finally did work. I was working on doing some updates. I want to give a shout out to Nathan White. Nathan White is the creator of Worshify and Biblify. Nathan, I know that y'all never see him because he's behind the scenes all the time. He is the unsung hero of this whole thing. All right, he does so much for Dr. Randy White's ministry and all their technology, filming, recording. He does a lot of stuff for me. I would have had no idea. I'm telling you, okay? I am a country boy from southeastern Oklahoma. I had no clue about technology. Nathan has gotten me a long way. Now I'm actually able to run this switcher. He helped me input some coding to get our software fixed. Give Nathan a big thank you. Here's something that you could do. All right, if you would like to help Nathan, go over to Worshify. This is the Worshify website. You have Biblify right here, which is a great Bible study tool. And let's see here. I believe if you go to, there is a way to, I believe, donate to them. Maybe it's on Biblify. Perhaps. Make a contribution. You can click on Make a Contribution to Biblify, and you can support what they are doing, okay? What they are doing here. So if you would like to help Nathan, as he is our tech digital warrior on the front lines, he's the guy to help. He's doing amazing work. I'm excited. He normally has something fun for Branson. He has a little bit of a project every year that he releases for us. You're going to like this. I've been talking to him a little bit. Sometimes I get a little bit on the inside. I know some things that are going on behind the scenes. These things are going to continue to improve and get better. Nancy says there were no glitches today for the live stream. That's great. I'm hoping that maybe some of the updates that I did and some of the things that Nathan helped me with has us back on track. But I could not do it without him. Understand, there's so many people that you do not see that often are getting a lot of the work done, right? They just put the pretty ones up on stage, right, for you to see. That's why Dr. Randy Whitehouse asked the theologian, the good-looking ones are the ones that get on camera, and then the ones that get stuff done, they're the ones that you don't ever see behind the scenes. Nathan's a good-looking guy, though. He's like his dad, but with hair, and some facial hair. Oh, goodness. All right, I probably should stop while I'm already digging a hole. All right, well, I'll let y'all continue to have your conversation about catfish as we get ready to close out the show. And let's see here. Let me get our closeout special cool music pulled up there. This has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. We are dedicated to sound doctrine, biblical theology, tackling the challenges that we face today in society. Thank you all so much. We'll see you tomorrow with more to come.